Hello everyone, Andy Rafael from eTechnics.com, and here we are with another video review. Now, it's been a while since we've actually looked at a motherboard on a video review, so we thought why not do it, and why not do it in a little bit of style. So what we've actually got up today, as you can see behind me, is the EVGA X79 FTW, or For the Win motherboard. Now, because we hadn't done a motherboard review in so long in terms of video reviews, we really wanted to make it special, and EVGA have really, they're not huge in the motherboard market, and they are obviously predominantly GPU manufacturers, but they have tried their dab hand at making motherboards, and they've done a good job with X58 and other sort of socket platforms as well. So this is their take on X79 Socket 2011, and generally the two chips out at the moment that are being highly regarded are the 3930K and the 3960X Extreme Edition processor. So we thought, why not get the EVGA X79 FTW board in and sort of have a look at it. So what I really want to talk to you about first is X79. We do know Sandy Bridge is renowned for being, at the moment, the fastest processors from Intel. Obviously you've got Sandy Bridge, you've got the upcoming Ivy Bridge Z77 boards, but if you want a sort of powerhouse crazy mad system, then you are going to be looking at X79 and Socket 2011. Now, we will tell you something before we actually get into this review, is we normally test all of our Socket 2011 motherboards with our 3960X, which we have two of, but the biggest problem we've got is they're both evaluation sample C0 steppings. This board doesn't like evaluation sample C0 stepping processors. So we have been forced to use our 3930K, which is no big problem. Still gives you obviously the stock results as well as the overclock results at 4.6 GHz like we'd normally do. But if you're expecting the 3960X to appear in this video, I'm sorry, it's just not going to happen. So that's not really a problem of Intel's, it's not really a problem of EVGA's, it's just the two chips working together. It doesn't like overclocking evaluation sample C0 steppings that well. And none of you out there are actually going to have this problem, because C0 steppings are evaluation samples that are for the media and people like that. You will be buying 3960s, 3930s or any other Intel chip as a C1, or even the newer, which are said to be slightly better at overclocking, C2 steppings. But we thought that we'd make it clear, hence why you may be thinking, if you checked out some of our written reviews on motherboards and seen the 3960X, why we're not using it for this particular review. Now, EVGA have a certain sweet spot in my heart, and that's purely because I believe they are one of the best manufacturers for PC components on the market. Now, before anyone says, this isn't me fanboying EVGA or anything like that, it's just what I believe in. It's just like with chassis, some people prefer Antec, some people prefer Cooler Master, Thermaltake, and you know, it's the same with graphics cards. Is it XFX, Asus, motherboards, Gigabyte, you know. There's so many choices out there, and it's what you prefer. Now me, I prefer EVGA for graphics cards when it comes to Nvidia. They are #1 in the US at the moment, and they are up and coming in the UK and other regions as well. Now obviously we're not talking GPUs today, we are talking motherboards, but they have invested a lot of their fine qualities from other products into what we're going to look at today. Now it's just little things that you'll find with EVGA, like the quality of the components used, also the quality of their customer service. Now, customer service when it comes to EVGA is second to none. They handle all their RMAs from base, don't require you to go back to the retailer. They will tell you that throughout opening the box and things like that, which you will be able to see shortly. And they just really want to liaise with the customer directly, so that they know you're getting the best possible customer service for themselves and not someone else on behalf of them. And that to me is a real nice touch. Now, they have got a few motherboards in the X79 range. They've got the SLI, the FTW, and then the Classified as well. Now everyone's heard of the EVGA Classified series, graphics cards, motherboards and so forth, so you pretty much all know what that's about. But there are some major differences between the SLI, the FTW and the Classified models. Now this mainly comes down to power delivery to the processor, but mainly it's going to be what options you have for expansion. So whether you want to use 3 cards in SLI, or 3 cards and a physics card, which is what this one can do, or with the Classified that can actually do quad SLI. So there are some differences with that. just worth sort of noting that down before we actually get unboxing with this and sort of show you what it's all about. But that's it really for me at the moment. I'm going to show this being unboxed, show you exactly what comes included inside, then we'll have a look around the board. You can see exactly what's involved with their motherboard, see if it's the right board for you, and then what we'll actually do is we will show you a couple of charts at the end just showcasing the performance results of this with the 3930K at stock and then also at 4.6 GHz. So stay tuned, and we'll get that coming up very, very shortly when we unbox the EVGA X79 for the win motherboard. So boys and girls, this is the front of the EVGA X79 FTW, or for the win motherboard. It's based around the X79 Express chipset from Intel and supports socket 2011 processors, as you can see down here. It's got USB 3 and SATA 3 or 6G. It's PCI Express 3.0 ready. And also on the front we can see that it's Intel chipset X79, accepts the Core i7 processors and also has support for NVIDIA SLI. As we know, EVGA are one of NVIDIA's biggest partners, so it was worthwhile for them to obviously tell you about that. Turning it around to the side, we can see on here that we've just got some of the main features listed down there that EVGA have included onto this board. These include the onboard CPU temperature monitor, passive chipset heatsink, the easy voltage read point, and much, much more. Turning it around again to the other side, it just tells us really that EVGA is #1 performance leader in 3D Mark 11, #1 folding at home team in the world, which we have checked and they are. We're still a little bit behind them, but one day you never know. And #1 Excellence Award 2011 for motherboards. So lots of great stuff there. And then when we look at the back of the board, we can see that we get a first glimpse of exactly what the board's going to look like. Straight away you can see it's quite a beast of a board. There's a bit of information here on the X79 for the win motherboard and exactly what is included, with uncompromised performance, uncompromised power and uncompromised features. And it also says down here about some of the key features, which is obviously Sandy Bridge support, which is the Sandy Bridge E enthusiast processors, Intel X79 chipset, 3-way SLI, or 3-way SLI plus a PhysX card, and also supports AMD Crossfire X as well. PCI Express 3.0 ready, but obviously we're waiting on Ivy Bridge to actually unlock the performance of that on Z77. It just really tells you about some of the amount of gigabit Ethernet ports it's got, the amount of USB ports, what sort of warranty. This comes with a 3-year warranty, and of course you've got EVGA's 24/7 support. Now we deal directly with one of the support guys, which anyone who's an EVGA fan and belongs on the EVGA forums will know of Jacob Freeman, who is absolutely fantastic for support. So just our sort of dealings with him and EVGA in general has really given us a scope and a bit of idea as to what EVGA's support to the end user is like. So let's get this opened and we can have a little look at what comes included inside. Right, so opening this up, the first thing that you actually notice if you've never had an EVGA product before is that EVGA put a little sticker on their box which just says, "Do not return to the store, EVGA offers direct customer service." And that's what they're renowned for, their direct customer service. So that's another great thing about EVGA. Now inside we get this black box, and opening this up reveals a whole host of things inside. So opening one side up, we can see exactly what we get included. So we get the EVGA X79 sort of leaflet, which opens out, gives you a view of the motherboard and talks through some of the main features of this particular motherboard. We also get a EVGA rear I/O panel, which is black, so it goes very, very nicely. That comes in a sort of anti-static bag. Also included is a 3-way Crossfire bridge, SLI bridge, sorry, 3-way SLI bridge for those who obviously want to utilise multiple graphics cards. Inside we also get a Molex to SATA Y adapter, and also some serial ATA cables, data cables. Everything's packaged really nicely, which I really like. You get bubble wrap, but then inside you get an anti-static bag as well. There's another 3-way SLI bridge, but this one's a slightly different size. So depending on what PCI Express ports you want to utilise, will depend on what bridge you use. And then we've got a single SLI bridge as well. And also inside is the EVGA X79 motherboard installation guide. And opening this up, we can see there's also the EVGA X79 for the win installation disc and case badge sticker. So that's all that's on that side. If we open up this side, it's quite a funky design how this box actually, if I tilt the camera down a little bit, you can see how the box is actually designed to sort of fold away and then sort of open back up. And in this side we get a lot more goodies. So we've got a USB 3.0 expansion bay panel with a native USB 3.0 header on there. Inside here it is quite hard to sort of see what we've got, so if we just open it up instead. Okay, so in here we get another serial ATA cable and another one, and also another Molex to SATA power connector. Put that all to one side and see what else is in here. We've got a Firewire expansion port and then a further 2 USB ports on an expansion port. These are USB 2.0 and not 3.0 like the other expansion port that we saw. And that's it for that part of the box. Now underneath is obviously what we all care about, which is the motherboard itself. So the motherboard itself comes in a EVGA branded anti-static bag and also has foam underneath. So if we move everything out the way, we can have a quick look at exactly what this board is all about. So as said, it has got the anti-static mat on there just to keep things nicely protected when in transit. And you can see this is the EVGA X79 for the win motherboard. So I'm just going to tilt down a little bit so you can see this in a little bit more detail. What you can see straight away is an ATX design. The PCB is black, which is really nice, and it's got the sort of darker black and then red accents on everything. If we take this little leaflet off of the CPU socket, it just says please read before CPU installation, and just talks you through step 1, step 2, step 3 and lastly step 4. Quite a nice gimmicky little guide. Very nice that they include that in there for first time and novice users. So what I'm going to do is we're going to stop recording for now. We're going to zoom in on the board and sort of focus on the main aspects of the board, and we can talk through it exactly what this board has to offer, and then we'll get it straight benchmarking straight away, and you can see the sheer performance that we're expecting from the EVGA X79 for the win motherboard. So boys and girls, this is the EVGA X79 for the win. Now before I start actually looking over this board, I want to tell you a little bit about the for the win and the X79 series from EVGA. So the X79 series from EVGA, the bottom one is the SLI, then the FTW or for the win, and then the classified. Now the main differences are obviously the phases on the CPU socket, how much power delivery there is, as well as the SLI capabilities. With the SLI model, you can do 3 cards, NVIDIA cards in SLI, and obviously Crossfire X as well. But with this you can actually do 3 cards plus PhysX, and then with the classified you can do 4 cards in SLI plus obviously AMD Crossfire X as well. So to note, this one is 3 NVIDIA cards in SLI plus a PhysX card as well, but we'll talk about the PCI Express lanes in a little bit more detail further on in the video. So let's start with the CPU socket, but before we do that I just want to sort of comment on the actual aesthetics of the board. It comes with a black PCB and follows all sort of ATX form factor conditions, and to me personally is one of the best looking boards I've ever seen. It really is nice. Everything's laid out, it's not too bulky, not loads of cooling, passive heat sinks or anything everywhere, so really nice. So starting with the actual passive heatsink design, you can see that we've got one up here. Now what this one actually does is helps maintain the temperatures for the VRM, so you can see all of the different components that are underneath, and what that does is obviously provides power to the CPU socket, which in turn to the CPU and the memory, and just helps to keep things cool a little bit. The only other heatsink on here is this one that's branded with the EVGA X79 for the win wording. There's a screw mounting point here and a little panel here which actually lights up with a bright red EVGA logo, just like you see on these ferrite chokes over here, the sort of funky looking E, which is a really nice touch, I have to say. So CPU socket wise, it's a socket 2011 socket, supports the latest X79 processors, and then looking at the memory we can see we've got 2 ports here and another 2 slots over there. It supports up to 32 gig of DDR3 2133 as a standard, but obviously you can overclock that to as far as you want to go and the memory permits you to go. So some really sort of good capabilities there. 8 slots would have been nice, but may even be a little bit overkill in some people's opinions. So 4 is really nice, and 32 gig should be more than enough for what most people need. 16 gig is probably more like what people are actually going to buy. So moving over to the other heatsink area, we can see that we've got this passive, very low profile heatsink over here. Now in the heart of this is this tiny little box just here, and inside there is the BIOS. Now if we actually move down here we can see we've got a BIOS switch to take it from BIOS 1 to 2 and then down to 3. So you've got the choice of 3 different BIOS versions, just in case you fry one of them, or to have a bad flash or overclock it a little bit too far, that kind of thing. You've got that flexibility. Moving around to the expansion slots that we spoke about, there's 5 PCI Express X16 lanes, which you may be able to see. They are all, you can see the metal pins there, they are all X16 capable, but depending on how you're going to have your configuration will depend on exactly how and what bandwidth it actually runs at. So if you're running 1 card, that's fine at X16, 2 cards would be X16, 3 cards would actually be X8, but we all know that the differences between X16 and X8 isn't a great deal. So you've also got a PCI Express X1 slot here as well, but you can use any of the X16s for smaller profile cards like X1, X4, and then obviously the full X16, X8 cards as well. As we move down a little bit further, you can see that we've got a debug LED over here, which is handy for overclockers and enthusiasts. We've got a 4-pin Molex power connector here if you are using multiple graphics cards, and then we've got all the front panel headers. So we've got a few fan headers sort of scattered all over the place, and then there's a couple up here and down here. But front panel connector wise, you can see that we've got 4 USB 2.0 ports which support 2 per header, so giving you a lot of USB 2.0 technology and capabilities. Firewire 1394 and then USB 3.0 native header just underneath this rubber grommet. You've also got your standard front panel HD LED, reset, power on and power LED. A few more fan headers, internal speaker, which is can be a real godsend, and then that BIOS selection switch that we spoke about. Moving further up, we can see that we've got a reset button over here, a power, and a reset CMOS button, which there is actually one on the back as well, but we'll talk about that when we look at the rear I/O. So some really nice features there. ATX power, we've got a 24 pin which is rotated on its side for easy cable management that can just come straight down. And then we've also got another 2 power connectors over here, both 8 pin, so delivering sufficient power to the CPU, especially when overclocking. SATA wise, you can see that we've got 6 ports. The 4 black ports run off the X79 chipset and run at SATA 2 speeds, so 3 gigabit per second. And then we've got the 2 red ones which also run off the X79 chipset, and that utilises SATA 3, which is 6 gigabit per second. So really great features on this board, and if we turn it around we can have a quick look at the rear I/O. So on the rear I/O you can see that we've got a Bluetooth module, 2 USB 2.0 ports, the reset CMOS button. We've also got this header here which is for EVGA's own little device to help with overclocking and things like that, and we're actually linked to the product page for that on the written review of this motherboard. You've got a PS2 mouse and keyboard combo port, 2 USB 3.0, another 2 USB 3.0, 2 eSATA ports which run at eSATA 2, and that's run by the Marvell controller chip, gigabit LAN, another 4 USB 3.0 ports, and then 8 channel analog as well as digital SPDIF optical sound output. So some really great features. The rear I/O looks really bright and colourful with all the USB 3s on there, and you've got sufficient space and expansion slots for some really great graphics card multi-GPU technology. What we're going to do now is we're going to get this board onto one of our benches, see how far we can overclock it, see what the stock results are as well, and bring it straight to you. So stay tuned.